Today, we discuss what some consider to be one of, if not the greatest television show of all time, Breaking Bad. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 12 of the Film Ignite podcast. For all things film and TV, this is the place to be. I cannot believe it's been 12 episodes of the podcast. That's 12 weeks. That's 3 months basically of the podcast. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been showing support for the podcast. I'm hoping to grow this show more week after week, making it better for you guys. And we got a great episode today. It's going to be a meaty one. It's going to be a long one, but I'm so excited to dive deep into Breaking Bad with you all, and this is going to be a warning that this episode is going to contain spoilers for the entirety of Breaking Bad. If you have not seen this show yet, please do yourself a massive favor and go watch it. This episode is going to get into really heavy spoilers, going to sort of be going through every season, giving my thoughts, analysis, discussion on some of the components of the show and the seasons. So some quick history. Breaking Bad is an American neo-Western crime drama. Now, a neo-Western is a Western that incorporates contemporary U.S. settings, but still uses Western themes, like a rebellious antihero, as seen in Walter White. It also contains settings like open plains and desert landscapes, as seen through the setting in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And it also contains lots of gunfights, as seen many times throughout the series. The series was created by Vince Gilligan, and Gilligan wrote, directed, and produced the hit series with the idea in mind that he wanted the hero to become the villain. He stated that television was notoriously good at keeping their characters static and unchanged so that shows could go on for years or decades, but he wanted to break that mold and focus on a story driven by change. It's even said in the pilot episode of the show by Walter White himself, "Chemistry is technically the study of matter, but I like to see it as the study of change." A brilliant use of the quote in direct relation to the plot, an actual great explanation of chemistry, and a metaphor for the show itself. Now, Breaking Bad tells the story of Walter White, a guy who is sick of the boring, mundane life he lives day in and day out, who is given a diagnosis of stage 3 lung cancer. Now, in order to pay for his treatment, he turns to a life of crime and turns to his former chemistry student, Jesse Pinkman, to sell crystal meth to provide enough money to his family so that they will be well off when he dies. Vince Gilligan himself said that the title Breaking Bad is a colloquialism for to raise hell, which describes Walter's transformation. The first season of Breaking Bad received very positive reviews. It also happens to be the shortest season of the show, as with most new television shows. Since the show's final episode, it has been held to the standard of one of the greatest television shows ever made. Its first 3 seasons did significantly well, but its 4th and 5th seasons saw a rise in viewership when the show was made available on Netflix right before the season 4 premiere. When talking about Breaking Bad, I do need to point out the way I watch the show and how the way you watch it might alter your viewing experience. We have to remember that this show aired on basic cable TV on AMC, meaning every week you got to tune in at a certain time to catch the episode. If you miss it, you better hope you recorded it on PVR or it reran later in the night or the next day. I obviously did not watch Breaking Bad this way. I watched the show on Netflix. I started the show in July of 2020 and finished in January of 2021. And I believe this was the perfect way for me to have watched the show. Breaking Bad is not made like the newer shows that we are used to seeing on streaming services, where each episode is manufactured with it in mind that each episode should seamlessly lead into the next. With popular shows like take Stranger Things, for example, the show is made with it in mind that they want people to sit and watch 4 or 5 episodes in a row, so they design the show in a certain way that the endings of the episodes make you want to keep watching and keep the flow going. Breaking Bad is different for a few reasons. Breaking Bad is such a deeply emotional story and at times can get really, really dark, really depressing, and very intense. With each episode being around 42 minutes, it takes a lot out of you every time you watch, as the White family slowly falls apart over the course of 6 seasons. Watching Walter's marriage fall apart, his relationship with his son crumble, watching Jesse fall deeper and deeper into a state of depression, and watching innocent people get hurt due to Walter's actions, all takes an emotional toll on the audience. Breaking Bad is a fantastic show, but it's not always one that's easy to watch. Secondly, the show is so fine-tuned and meticulously crafted that each episode contains so much story, so much character development, and asks so many questions. Some episodes wrap up things set up a few episodes ago while also setting things up for future episodes or even seasons. There are dozens of plot lines and character arcs running rampant through each episode, and the fine-tuned details, if paid attention to correctly, make for a very rewarding viewing experience. But it also makes for one that takes a lot out of you, and in my opinion, the show is more enjoyable when you're able to just take a step back from it all after you have just watched an episode and really let it all sink in and just sort of think about it for a while. There are some episodes, especially near the end, where you definitely do not want to stop watching, but in my opinion, the best way to watch Breaking Bad is with significant breaks between episodes to let it all marinate with you. I found myself thinking about what I had just watched, and it paid off later when I remembered things from many episodes ago that I otherwise would have forgotten had I binge-watched the show. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here to tell you how to watch your shows. I know many people have binged the show and enjoyed it just as much, but for me personally, getting the full experience is giving each episode a chance to breathe once it's done. Also, I am so lucky that I didn't have to wait a week to watch each episode. We got the privilege of the show being finished and all of it on Netflix, that I can watch it at any time. I cannot imagine the excruciating wait within the mid-season finale of Season 5. The episode where Hank is on the toilet and finds the Walt Whitman book, audiences had to wait an entire year to see the final episodes play out after that. I think the 6-month period that I took was the perfect amount of time to still remember everything, but still space it out enough to get the full experience. Trust me, this is a show that while you're watching will take over your headspace. You will not stop thinking about it. It took everything in me to not search up stuff online or read about things because I didn't want anything spoiled. During its run, the show received 16 Emmys, 2 Golden Globes, 2 Critics' Choice Awards, and many more accolades. Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, and Anna Gunn have all received Emmys for their performances on the show. So now let's sort of get into the discussion of the seasons of Breaking Bad and the overall analysis discussion of the story. Season 1 of Breaking Bad is a somewhat strange season, mainly because of how short it is. The first season consists of 7 episodes and originally premiered January 20th, 2008. There were originally 9 planned episodes, but due to the writer's strike, they were all cancelled. Season 1 of Breaking Bad brilliantly sets up its plot in one of the best pilot episodes ever. Seriously, the plot episode of Breaking Bad could be a contender for one of the best episodes of the series. The opening shot of Walter White's pants flying through the desert sky set up a darkly comedic tone, while immediately followed by a man in his underpants driving an RV with 2 dead bodies in the back. The opening scene of the show is intense, it's chaotic, and it hooks you right away, and it fits in with all the best moments you love about Breaking Bad. Walter's persona is set up from the opening episode. He is a very timid, shy, and mundane person who is working hard to make ends meet as an overqualified science teacher, but he's strapped for cash, so works an extra part-time job at a car wash. Walter's sex life is also anything but exciting, as seen in the ever so depressing bedroom scene from the first episode. It doesn't help that Walter is getting alphaed by his own brother-in-law, Hank Schrader, who Walt Jr., his son, seems to be way more interested in and inspired by. Walter is clearly suffering a midlife crisis. He feels unfulfilled with the life he currently lives and feels like he's even wasting away the one field he knows best, chemistry. Teaching it to students who don't even take his class seriously, like all kids in high school, I guess. The saddest part is, When Walter learns about his cancer diagnosis, he shows no reaction. He's numb, like he was already dead. He just learned that after living such a mediocre and mundane life, that it's going to be cut short, as one final humiliating slap in the face. From the very first episode, Walter claims that the reason he teams up with Jesse is for his family. He knows that he's the breadwinner of the household, and if he dies, the family would struggle financially, so he wants to make sure that he has as much money so he can now support his family in the event that he dies. Walter understands that selling and cooking meth is illegal, but he's still willing to do anything just for the thrill of breaking the mundane life cycle and finally fulfilling something within himself. We've now seen all of Walter's backstory, and we finally cut back to the desert, where Crazy 8 and Emilio lie dead in the back, and we're all caught up in the story of how Walter White, the once average, run-of-the-mill, mundane father and husband, fell into a life of crime and lies. And at the end of the pilot, Walter comes back home. He shows a new side of himself to Skylar in the bedroom as she asks, "Walt, is that you?" "Not anymore, Skylar, not anymore." I think season 1 feels so different from the rest of the show because of how much it had to do in so little, but it uses its limited episode count to its advantage. I feel like season 1 focuses its story on dealing with Tuco and Crazy 8 very well, as that is the driving force of suspense and tension throughout the season. I still remember watching the episode where Walter kills Crazy 8 by choking him, and just how intense that scene was, really showing the depths of intensity this show was capable of going to. Season 1 very much feels like the Walter and Jesse show, with Walter's family taking somewhat of a back seat this season just so the main storylines could be set up. And I can't talk about season 1 without talking about Jesse's character, because according to Vince Gilligan, Jesse was supposed to be killed off within the first season of the show. It's astonishing to me that they thought of doing that, because I just cannot see Breaking Bad being anywhere near as good without Jesse. Jesse is just like Walter in a way. He's a deadbeat, good-for-nothing young adult wasting away his life with drugs. He's played by his parents and has nothing to look forward to in his life. He also turns to a life of cooking meth and making lots of money. His story is just as important, if not more important than Walter's throughout the show, just because of how Walter's life and actions impact Jesse. Jesse and Walter are both very dynamic characters, and that is shown in just 7 episodes. By the end of season 1, Walter is a brand new man, with a new look, a new personality, and a new outlook on life. He's finally ditched his Walter White persona and opted for something a little more badass, Heisenberg. Season 1 of Breaking Bad is fantastic, and is not bad by any means, but considering the low episode count, the lack of significantly impactful moments keeps it from being anywhere but on the bottom of my ranking of the seasons. Now, season 2, however, of Breaking Bad is where things start to really kick into high gear. This season was finally given the luxury of having a full 13 episodes. This really allowed them to start exploring deeper ideas, plot lines, and characters. Season 2 gives us the introduction of Jane, a girl who lives next to Jesse in his new house, and who ends up becoming the girl who Jesse falls in love with. The entire plotline between Jesse and Jane plays a major role in Jesse's arc moving forward, as the end of the second to last episode, Phoenix, is a turning point of this series. This is the episode where Jane dies, and not only does she die, but she dies as a result of Walter not saving her. Her death really changes the dynamic of the story moving forward, as Jane was really important to Jesse, and Walter saw her dying as eliminating a roadblock in the way of him and Jesse being successful together. This is where we start to see the truly dark and depressing downfall of Jesse, as in the future seasons, he spirals out of control in and out of depression and ramps up his bad drug habits. Season 2 has a lot more character moments between Walter and his family as well, and the tension between him and Skylar continues to rise as she becomes more and more suspicious, as any spouse would, of Walter's activity. Throughout all the plot lines revolving around drug cartels and whatnot, for me, the part of the show that always kept me the most interested was Walter and his family, because at its essence, that's what the show always was about. Walter trying to financially secure a future for his family. There is an entire plotline here about a second cell phone that Walter has that ends up making Skylar leave him, believing that he is cheating on her. We also get a lot more of Hank this season, and Hank still remains an all-time favorite character of mine because he's always looking to do the right thing and get the job done. But he has to climb his way up the corporate ladder in the police station, and when he ends up in the desert with the bomb goes off, leaving him traumatized. It sets up even more dark moments ahead for his character. All the main characters we've grown to love or hate over the past season are set up very well in Season 2 for much more interesting fates and dilemmas ahead. Season 2 also introduces us to the legendary Saul Goodman. Saul is a staple side character in the Breaking Bad series, and in my opinion is the perfect example of what a side character should be. He steals the show in every scene he's in. He plays a crucial role in moving the story forward for our protagonist as well. Vince Gilligan is great at creating characters, but Saul is easily one of the best. Considering he is a side character, they give so much intrigue behind how he started his entire illegal law firm and has all these people working for him right in plain sight. He's sharp, he's witty, he's smart, he knows how to talk his way in or out of things, but all that changes when he meets Walter, who's a stubborn, wants his way type of guy. Saul really is a driving force throughout the series and helps certain events move along, and overall is just a great character to have around in a series like this. Season 2 of Breaking Bad isn't free of shocking and thrilling moments either. The second episode of the season, Grilled, is a standout bottle episode where majority of the episode is Jesse and Walter spending the entire time kidnapped by Tuco and try to kill him, ending in a balls-to-the-wall shootout with Hank and Tuco. 4 Days Out is also a classic Breaking Bad episode, giving us the classic Walter and Jesse banter we've come to love in the series, as well as keeping us on the edge of our seat as to how they're going to get out of each roadblock put ahead of them. The story structure of Breaking Bad is what makes it so intense, thrilling, and suspenseful, because even in the peaceful moments, you know that something might go wrong, and it usually does. Majority of the show has things go wrong because of an action a character made or something they said, and that effect may not be noticed right away, but it does have adverse effects for the rest of the series. The show is a series of problems that Walter is faced with day in and day out, but they are all a result of his own actions, and that's what makes this show so great. There's no plot armor. Nothing comes out of nowhere. Everything is so meticulously written, planned, and crafted, so that you could keep track of the things that happened 5 episodes ago, for example, and how it ties into the current episode. Just another celebration of the brilliance of Vince Gilligan and the entire writing team behind the show. Season 3 of Breaking Bad, in my opinion, acts as a bridge between the tame, more drama-filled aspects of the first 2 seasons and the insanity and thrills that come with the last few seasons. Season 3 focuses on Skylar divorcing Walter because she believes he partakes in illegal activities, which, if only she knew the half of, would have divorced his ass a long time ago. It's really hard to watch some of the scenes between Skylar and Walter as their marriage literally falls apart. Skylar starts seeing Ted Beneke and cheats on Walter with him, sending Walt into an even more of a rage. And this season is where things start to really spiral out of control, and the original goal of what Walter was doing strays further and further away from him as he begins to lose the people closest to him and get into more and more danger with the cartel. One of the most divisive episodes of the show, loved by some, hated by many, is Fly. I personally found this episode to be pure genius and honestly a nice change of pace and a much needed character moment to catch up the characters, audience, and writers. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. What I mean by this is that there is a moment in this episode that I just found so fantastic, and it is the moment when Walter tells Jesse the story of the moment he wished he had died. It is the moment we hear in the opening of the episode Fly, with Skylar singing to Holly a lullaby. And Walter tells Jesse that he wished he had died in that peaceful moment. Now, why do I love this moment so much? Because He then goes on to talk about how he only did this for his family, and he's losing them more and more every day, and his cancer is only getting better. So was it all for nothing? And right when he said that, I knew the writers of the show were pure genius, because they literally read my mind up until that moment. You see Walter go through all these hardships with his son, his marriage, the danger he's in with the cartel, yet his cancer is getting better, and his family's now starting not to trust him. He's getting a divorce. It truly is depressing. The further Walt goes into the criminal world, the more chance he has of actually paying for his actions, like, going to prison or getting shot and killed, when he was only given less than 2 years to live anyway. It's a fantastic bridge that mends the questions that the audience had, well, I know for sure I had, and gives us a deeper understanding of the connection between us and the characters. And I think the episode is brilliant. Some people think the episode is too boring. Well, if you're a fan of perfect writing, great characters, and fantastic plot, then it's anything but boring. And the direction of the episode keeps it fresh and engaging, not using many static shots, but lots of interesting ones to keep you visually engaged. This is an overall fantastic season, may I add. I feel like the show is one that continuously gets better after every single season, but the way season 3 ends brings it to a whole new level. The season 3 closers of Breaking Bad, half measures and full measures, are the ones I vividly remember as being the craziest, most intense moments of the show thus far. The ending of half measures, having Jesse at his absolute breaking point after not only finding out that it was Andrea's brother who killed Combo, and that the cartel had Andrea's brother killed as well, to Walter barreling through 2 guys, killing one of them, and finishing the other one off with a gunshot to the head. Talk about a thrilling ending to an episode, ending with just one line from Walter: run. A perfect closer and a perfect cliffhanger to lead into the season 3 finale, which is easily one of the best episodes of the series. Now, Breaking Bad is notorious for its fantastic opening and closing episodes of each season, and season 3 has easily one of the best closers and episodes overall, may I add. The entire episode is great, but what makes it so memorable is the final minutes, where Walter is being taken down to the basement by Mike and is about to be killed for intervening with Gus's plan. But Walter takes the upper hand by sending Jesse to kill Gale in an even more devastating turning point for Jesse's character, as for the rest of the series, he now deals with the trauma of killing Gale in cold blood, who really was a good man who for some reason got involved in illegal activity. The shot of the camera swinging forward towards Jesse's pistol, then bam, cutting to black just as the shot goes off, is brilliant, and I couldn't imagine the feeling of having to wait an entire year to see how the story continued. It's a thrilling ending sequence and has ramifications that make the next season all the more intense. Oh, and how can I forget the incredible ending of the episode called 1 Minute, where it's Hank versus the twins. Such a great scene. Now, moving on to season 4 of Breaking Bad. Season 4 is a lot of people's favorite, even more than the final ones, and I can definitely understand why. While season 4 does have many family-related events within it, I find it to be a giant psychological and physical chess match between Gus and Walter that makes this season so exciting. It is a battle of wits and strength, and who is willing to go far enough to achieve what they want. The weight, dread, and sense of urgency that we feel this season is all due to Gustavo Fring, played masterfully by Giancarlo Esposito. We are here to root for Walter. We want to see him succeed, and Gus is nothing but an obstacle in the way. But he is just as smart, if not smarter, than Walter. He knows the business inside out, and he's been involved in it for years. Yet Walter still finds ways to outsmart him. Season 4 has some of the most action-packed and thrilling moments of the entire series, relying less on family drama and more suspense and surprise. Even within the first episode of season 4, Box Cutter, we see Gus slit Victor's throat in full graphic display, blood spewing everywhere, and a terrifying display of Gus's ability to harm, but also to show that he still needs Walter, but decides to take his anger out elsewhere. It's the ultimate power move. There are so many classic moments in season 4 that are just so hard to overlook. The box cutter scene, as previously mentioned. There's also the scene where Walter and Hank discuss who WW may be in a scene with such little dialogue, no music, just the two guys sitting talking in the bedroom. It's amazing. The classic "I am the danger" speech that Walter gives to Skylar is also in season 4. Face Off, another fantastic finale episode, giving us a thrilling and shocking end to Gustavo Fring with half of his face being entirely blown off, followed by Walter celebrating the metaphorical chess match with "I won." The shock and terror on Skylar's face when she hears and sees what Walter has done still sticks with me. The Jesse and Walter fight in this season is fantastic. The poisoning of Brock, the Lily of the Valley twist, literally there are just so many, too many great moments this season. It's not even fair. This season is entertaining from start to finish. It holds no stops when fully fleshing out and making the story so much more interesting episode after episode. Season 4 also contains my favorite scene in the entire show and one of the best scenes I have ever seen in any TV show or movie at all. Now, I'm not talking entire episodes here, but my favorite scene in all of Breaking Bad is the ending of Season 4, Episode 11, Crawl Space. Pure masterclass in acting by Bryan Cranston, who shakes you to your core in fear for what he might do, to the danger he's in, and to the pure, insane state of mind he's in while laughing like a maniac at the bottom of the crawl space. The direction of the entire scene is fantastic, and seeing Skylar look over the hole as Walter spirals out of sanity is so deeply disturbing. The thumping, heartbeat-like soundtrack keeps you on the edge of your seat. I am not even lying or exaggerating when I tell you that I was literally sweating and shaking after watching the ending of Crawl Space. The ending of this episode is the culmination of like 40 episodes worth of story coming crumbling down. Gus has had enough of Walter, and he's going to kill his entire family, defeating the purpose of any reason why Walter did any of this in the first place. He's panicked. He fears for his life. He fears for the life of his family. He's running. He just needs to get away. He finally gets to where he needs to be, and it's gone. All the money that he worked so hard to get to save his family after his passing is all gone. And who's it gone to? It's gone to the man who his wife cheated on him with. At that moment, Walter is probably thinking he and his entire family are going to be killed. There was no escape. It was over. That's the feeling I was left with after watching Crawl Space, that I literally had to stand up and take a walk before finishing the season because the ending of that episode literally shook me to my core. And it works so well because of where it's placed within the show. And just the absolute masterclass of acting, soundtrack, directing, and everything else in between makes that an absolute classic scene in my eyes. The scream that Bryan Cranston does feels so real, raw, and emotional that you can just feel the pain, anger, sadness, and pure rage in his voice, juxtaposed to Skylar's complete fear. She is like stuttering her words. She can't even speak because she is so shocked at the state that her husband is in. Then, like some sort of nightmare, the phone rings and we see the silhouette of Marie pacing back and forth, crying that Hank is in danger. A pure nightmare. That is what the ending of Crawl Space feels like, and nothing will ever come close to watching that scene for the first time. But every time I revisit it, it just hits the same. And I guarantee on a rewatch, it will hit even harder given the circumstances of the season. Overall, it was a fantastic season for the show. I could totally understand why it's some people's favorite, but for me, there's just one more season that comes right above it. Now, Season 5. Season 5 was released in two parts. Some consider them to be Season 5A and Season 5B. For the sake of talking points, I'll consider them two separate seasons because they feel different enough to me. Plus, there was an entire year gap between episode 8 and 9 of the season. The best way I can put Season 5 which I'm considering the first half, so season 5A of Breaking Bad, the best way I can put it is a prologue for season 6. Now, it really does feel like the beginning of the end. It feels a lot like season 1, where it's a very self-contained story, while gradually building to something bigger and bigger. The threat of Gustavo Fring is now gone. Gustavo's dead, he's non-existent, which means Walter is left to his own devices. So he and Jesse team up with the reluctant Mike to start cooking meth again. This time with the disguise as an extermination company, one of the workers being Todd. Season 5 sees the introduction of many new characters, which at first turned me off because I hate when characters are introduced at the end or near the end of TV shows, when all I really want is a conclusion for the characters I've been on this journey with for so long. But in hindsight, all the characters that they added were great and play their role perfectly within the story. That's just because Vince Gilligan is a master at just creating great characters. By far, the most hated group of people ever put to screen is Todd and Uncle Jack and their gang. Talk about horrible people that make you just want to scream and throw things at the screen while watching. While I don't think season 5 has that many great all-time moments, it really is a slow burn for a while and a character study of these characters we've been on this journey with for so long. Easily, the best episode of the season is Dead Freight, where the gang attempts a train robbery for more product for their cook. It's an insanely intense and thrilling episode. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time watching because the actual heist takes up a good portion of the episode. And how can you forget that ending with Todd shooting the little kid? Again, another extreme turning point for Jesse as he goes off the rails again, seeing what lengths Walter and Todd are willing to go through to get the quote-unquote job done. That scene then leads into the next episode's chilling intro, where they dismantle and dissolve the kid's bike in acid and destroy the body in a chilling and haunting opening scene with no dialogue, just eerie music to set the somber mood. Look, I definitely enjoy season 5, but compared to what comes after, it's hard to not want to move forward and get to the moments we've all been waiting for, and we get one of the greatest cliffhangers in TV history, and it all starts with Hank the Man taking a fat dump in Walter's house. Season 6, the final season. Some consider it to be 5B. For the sake of this discussion, I'm just going to call it Season 6. Season 6 of Breaking Bad is, in a word, perfect. Absolute perfection. Every single episode this season is perfect, and I do not mean that in any exaggerated way whatsoever. Season 6 of Breaking Bad is perfect in every way. There could not have been a better lineup of episodes to end this show on than this. Season 6 is not only the best, but it's also the darkest, most disturbing, intense, thrilling, emotionally devastating, yet satisfying season of the show. In a compact 8 episodes, banger after banger after banger, Season 6 of Breaking Bad does what every show wishes it could do, but very few have ever accomplished: stick the landing. After 60 episodes of telling the story of Walter White and his journey to earn enough money to allow his family to survive after he passes of cancer, through all the troubles, hardships, and obstacles that he faced, he is met with his biggest challenges yet. Nearly every character is given their proper ending. Every story and plotline is wrapped up perfectly. No lace is left untied, no stone is left unturned, and it makes for some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen in my life. Talk about emotional turmoil and devastation. This season has some of the most heavy stuff you will ever see on TV. I remember pulling an all-nighter to binge watch all 8 episodes of the final season because I just could not help myself to keep spacing them out anymore, because the story was just too rich, the stakes were too high, and the emotions were too real. The death of Hank is absolutely heartbreaking and riveting. Just when he figured it all out, he really was the good guy all along. All Hank wanted to do was catch the guy he'd been hunting for over a year, and he finally did. He was right under his nose the entire time. It was Walter, his own family. The scene where Hank confronts Walter is immaculate acting by Dean Norris and just incredible writing. The tread lightly line still gives me chills just thinking about it. This season also gives us the greatest episode of any TV show I've ever seen, and the only episode on IMDb with a 10 out of 10 star rating with over 100,000 votes. Ozymandias is the ultimate episode. Do I even have to explain why? The death of Hank, the final words between Walter and Jesse, "I watched Jane die," chills every time. This is some of the most disturbing and effed up stuff you've ever seen on TV. The kidnapping and torture of Jesse honestly makes me sick to my stomach watching what he goes through. The tension between Skylar and Marie, and Skylar coming clean to Walt Jr. Then Walt comes home, and the fight inside the house is a masterclass in directing, acting, writing, and everything in between. The emotional devastation when Walter admits he got Hank killed. Skylar finally stands up for herself and goes on the attack. Walter steals Holly. Skylar chases Walt down the street. Then the phone call, the legendary phone call where Walter gets Skylar off scot-free while also acting as a double meaning for how he feels about the entire situation. And it ends off with Walter riding into the unknown. Look, there are very few moments in TV or film that I would consider perfect, but Ozymandias is perfection. I don't care what anyone says, and that's not even the final episode. Like, come on. The final episode of Breaking Bad is also amazing, as Walter finally admits to Skylar that he didn't do it for the family. He did it for himself. And the final scene between them is beautifully done, and the saddest scene in the entire show when Walter watches his own son walk into the house for one last time from behind a glass wall, not even being able to say anything to him. Imagine your own son wishing you were dead. Truly heartbreaking stuff, guys. And the ending exchange between Walter and Jesse is just so devastating. It's really bittersweet. Now, look, I can go on and on about how perfect and amazing season 6 of Breaking Bad is, how great the show is just overall. Look, I hope during my discussion about the seasons, I really made sense about everything I was trying to say, and it didn't just sound like needless rambling. I truly cannot go through every single fantastic moment in this show. I just tried to talk about the ones that I remember the most, the ones that stood out to me the most, and the most important ones. The ones that really shaped each season. I could probably do an entire podcast episode on each season on their own. There's just so much to talk about with this show. What is it really that makes Breaking Bad an all-time show? In my opinion, it's the characters. The characters in Breaking Bad are all memorable in some way. Walter White. Come on. Walter White is a staple of film, a staple of TV. He's one of the most well-known characters of all time. He's such a dynamic character. Like Vince Gilligan said, he wanted to create a character that TV was not ready for. TV was not ready for Walter White. He is the ultimate, going from good guy to bad guy without you even noticing sometimes, because of the most subtle ways his character changed throughout the show. If you look at Walter White in season 1, he is not the same man in season 5. In season 5, he is a menace. By season 6, he's a broken, disturbed man who is paying for all the pain and trauma that he caused while he was on his high, while he was on his season 4 Gustavo Fring chess match high. Like when he gives that phone call to Skylar, "I won," with the smirk and everything. He's in his element right there, and it just is solidified with that final speech to Skylar when he tells her, "I didn't do this for the family. I did it for me. I was good at it. I loved doing it." Guys, like I said before, TV was not ready for Walter White. Walter White really changed what a protagonist could be. A protagonist could be someone who evolves over time in drastic ways, yet so subtly that you may not even notice that by the end of the show, Walter White is the bad guy. I just have to be the one to say it. I believe that Walter White is the bad guy in this show. And, a character who I think gets too much hate is Skylar. Skylar White, when you first watch the show, okay, because Walter is still technically the protagonist. He's the main character who you want to see succeed. Even though he is a villain in my eyes by the end, you have to look at things from the wife's perspective. From Skylar's perspective, her husband is constantly leaving the house. Her husband kept a cancer diagnosis from her, keeps leaving the house, has a second cell phone, is being really shady. Then she finds out everything, the meth, all this, the cooking, the Jesse, the cartel, everything. And people still had the audacity to call Skylar like the B word and everything, and saying Skylar is such a terrible character. She keeps getting in the way. Look, there are at times when you watch the show for the first time, you will think of Skylar as a roadblock for Walter White. But the genius of what Vince Gilligan does is he flips the expectations of what a protagonist and antagonist mean. Because, like, Gustavo Fring, yes, he is a bad guy, but I don't think he's the bad guy. He's just another bad guy going against Walter White. And the innocent people within all this are Skylar and Walt Jr. And even Skylar is dragged into Walt's mess. You know, she ends up working for him, and then they buy the car wash, and she ends up laundering money and everything. And I was able to be lucky enough, maybe it was due to the way I watched the show, but I was lucky enough to see things from her perspective and Walter's perspective. Because from discussions and things that I read about people when they watch the show, it's like they only see things from Walter's perspective. But the way I see it, I can see things from both. So in the moments where I could see people thinking Skylar is acting like an idiot and Skylar is ruining the show and being a total, B-word wife, I see the opposite. I see the realness in the great writing as, yes, that's how a wife or any rational human being would act if their husband was acting this way. Because when you look at it from Skylar's perspective, Walter White is insufferable. He's always lying. He can't lie well to his wife. He's always hiding something. He's so shady. He's never himself, right? And that's what I think is great about it. I encourage you to, if you do rewatch the show, look at it from a different lens. Look at it through the lens of Skylar, and you will truly see that she is not the monster that you think she is. The monster of Breaking Bad is Walter White in every way. Just look at it through Jesse Pinkman. Absolutely just brought down to his lowest of lows because of the things that Walter did. Now, there is an argument to be made that, yes, Jesse still made those choices by himself. He could have, just left, not been a part of the cooking anymore. But there's so much emotional manipulation and gaslighting and just turmoil that Walter put Jesse through that puts him in the spot he is at the end of the series. Look at Jesse season 1. He's just a stupid ass, goofy, sort of druggy, just living his life, sort of a bum, not really doing much. He's not a bad guy. And then you look at him season 6, this guy is being tortured in a concrete cell in the ground, being tortured by these Nazis, having his girlfriend shot right in front of him in some of the greatest acting, first of all, I've seen by Aaron Paul. That scene where Andrea gets shot in the head is so devastating to watch. And it works so well because Todd is the one to do it in his psychotic ways that Vince Gilligan just creates such good characters. I cannot get enough of it. But Jesse Pinkman is really a tragedy. Like it's a downward spiral. Like Breaking Bad could just be renamed The Tragedy of Jesse Pinkman, The Tragedy of Walter White, The Tragedy of Skylar. It's just the downfall of so many great characters. Even Saul and Mike, especially Mike, the way Mike, I haven't watched Better Call Saul yet. I'm definitely going to, but the way that Mike was, dragged into Walter's mess, and how Walter really just created a chaos tornado around him and spiraled everyone's life out of control. Hank got his own brother-in-law killed because of his actions. And, of course, there's Gus, who a lot of people think to be the villain. And, of course, he's technically the antagonist for most of the series. But considering him the villain, I consider him and Walter White equally as bad. But actually, maybe not true, because Gustavo Fring did go after kids, but so did Walter did poison Brock. So, there are some definite similarities between Walter and Gus. Just one of them, that's why season 4 is so great, because it's a psychological and physical chess match between Walter and Gus, and the conversations and dialogue, like the scenes with Walter and Gus when they're always talking, are some of the best in the show, because it just shows the parallels between them and how similar they really are to one another. Anyways, those are some of my quick thoughts on, why the characters of Breaking Bad make the show so great, because they're all so dynamic. They all change, they all tell their own story, and they create the overall essence and feeling of the show. And Vince Gilligan, you are just a genius, man. You created some of the most iconic TV characters in Walter White and Jesse Pinkman, and you still got them going strong with Saul Goodman in the spin-off Better Call Saul, which I really want to watch soon. I gotta dedicate some time to that, but I think the characters of the show, I mean, there's a plethora of other things that made the show fantastic, but if I could pinpoint one thing, what makes Breaking Bad an all-time classic show? It's the characters. Because without those, great characters that you just love, even Walter White, by the end of the show, even if you think he's a bad guy, you still love the character of Walter White because of the things he's done, all the badass moments, it's just fantastic what they were able to do with these characters. So I guess I'll close off with my final thoughts on this incredibly long episode of the podcast. I had to make it a long one because this show is so special to me. It is the first, sort of big show that I've watched, dedicated time to, and it's just a brilliant piece of filmmaking, a brilliant piece of, pop culture at this point. And Breaking Bad is one of those shows that you wish you could watch again for the first time. There will be nothing like the experience of watching Breaking Bad for the first time. I truly believe that. On a rewatch, it could get better because you might pick up other things, but nothing is going to beat those intense, thrilling moments, the suspense. You don't know what's going to happen next. At every turn, there's a twist. The plot, just think of the log line. The overall premise of the show leads itself to so many interesting avenues. The plot lines, the writing, the impeccable dialogue and writing at every corner is superb. Like I already talked about, the characters, the setting, Albuquerque, New Mexico, the barren desert wastelands just give way to some fantastic shots, leave this, sort of dreadful feeling a lot of the times with empty, like there's nothing. Like when Walter's driving a lot of the time, it's just empty, sand fields, not sand, what am I talking about? It's a desert. Just desert plains, I guess. The filmmaking, the cinematography, there are so many great shots. The soundtrack, the iconic opening scene, the iconic opening title sequence, the way, that table of elements are used for the characters' names in the credits, and just the overall legacy that Breaking Bad has left on TV, viewers, filmmakers. I mean, even if you've never seen Breaking Bad, you know about Breaking Bad. And just, it's left such a long-lasting legacy in film. I don't think this is a show I'm ever going to forget because it's easily one of those shows that I will study, I will think about forever, and I'm sure many will too. This is an all-time show, and I haven't watched a lot of the other great shows out there. I haven't watched, the Game of Thrones, The Wire, Mad Men, I'm sure there's a lot more, but I haven't watched those, up-class shows, the ones everyone talks about and knows about, to say if this truly is the best show of all time. But from the shows I have watched, it for sure is. It is for sure the best show I've ever seen in my life. It surpasses a lot of movies, honestly, but I know it's not fair to compare TV shows and movies, but if I could just say the best piece of filmmaking, the best piece of entertainment I've ever watched, surpassing any movie I've ever seen, is Breaking Bad. And I know that's not fair because movies are like 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2.5 hours. Breaking Bad is what, like 60 episodes, like 60 hours worth of content. But I truly believe it is the best piece of content, media, entertainment I have ever seen in my life. And I could just go on and on about how great it is, but I think it's time to wrap it up here. And yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on Breaking Bad. It went off a little off the rails at the end there. Hopefully you're still with me in this just incredible discussion on such an incredible show. The Film Ignite podcast is meant to ignite discussion on all things film and TV, so I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Breaking Bad? Do you love this show as much as I do? Who are your favorite characters? And what is your favorite season and episode? Let me know by connecting with me on social media at the Film Ignite Podcast. I'm just now realizing this is the first time we've discussed a TV show on the Film Ignite Podcast. I'm realizing that's probably going to happen a lot less than movies, so it's a rare occurrence that happens, so I probably will dedicate a lot more time to those TV show episodes because I'll talk about the show as a whole rather than, individual episodes or individual seasons, just given that it's easier for me to reflect on the show as a whole and talk about everything in hindsight, having seen the whole thing, rather than going episode by episode. Anyways, new episodes of the Film Ignite podcast are released every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and be sure to check out the Film Ignite YouTube channel for more movie discussions and reviews. Also, TV show discussions and reviews on there as well. Thank you guys so much for the support over the past 12 episodes, and I cannot wait to keep making more content for you all. I hope you enjoyed the meatier, longer episode. The next episode will probably be a film, so it won't be as long, but let me know if you enjoyed the longer episodes, and I'll see what I can do. As always, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you all in the next episode.